Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Franklin from the Money Code Academy, and I'm glad you are watching. On today's video, I want to quickly talk on how to get rid of debt, or rather you can say debt. Now, the reason I want to do this video is because considering the things that has taken place in the recent times, you discover that lots and lots of people have found themselves in such debt that they don't even know how they would go about it. And this has led many people to take their lives. Many have entered into depression. The other day I saw in the news a young man full of prospect who jumped from a building, jumped to his death. Now, the reason he did that was because of the financial problems that he has found himself. So I believe that this video will go a long way to help someone. This is actually a mini course, something that I have taken our time to write out few things that I believe will be of help to you. So I want you to pay close attention, because the things that I want to share in this video, it will go a very long way to help you. So we're going to be starting with volume 1. And on volume 1, I titled it Understanding Debt, or Understanding Debt. Now, the reason I titled it that way is because if you don't understand what debt is, it becomes difficult for you to actually get out of it. You know, something I've discovered in the financial world is that there are too many things that lots and lots of people don't understand. And so they dabble into it, and at the end of the day, they find themselves in a lot of trouble. So on the basis of that, we're going to be starting with understanding debt. So the first question I wrote down here is, what is debt? This might sound very basic to you, but trust me, it is a foundation that I'm trying to lay for this course. So what is debt? What is debt? Okay, so let's get started. Debt is an obligation that requires one party to pay money to the other party. You know, they agree to pay a certain amount to the other party. Is an obligation. Okay? Or you can say that debt is a deferred payment or series of payment that is expected to be paid at a particular time. Get the point now? Or you can say it is a form of money that you owe or that is due, to be paid on a certain time. You get the point now? So that is something I felt you should know about debt. The next question is, what are the different types of debts that are there? You know, this might sound shocking, but truly there are different kinds of debt. Number 1, you have the good debt. And then number 2, you have the bad debt. Now, the good debt is that kind of debt where you enter into, you take money for the purpose of, making profits. For example, there are lots of people who are into business today, and just because they want to increase the quality of their business, they take loan, and then they use that loan to pump into their business. Now, that kind of debt is called a good debt. You know why? The reason is because they are investing that money into an asset. That loan is not being invested into a liability. That money is being invested into an asset. Asset is something that generates money for you. Asset is something that brings profit to you. Another example is people who take loan for studies, that's student loan. Now, the student loan, this is something that people take just to be able to invest in themselves. So you can say that the student loan is also a good debt. The only challenge with the student loan is that it takes years to actually come out of such debt. You get the point now? Now, the bad debt. This is a kind of debt that you collect to invest into a liability. And this happens a lot of times. You see, there are people today, they take loan to buy a car. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, because to a great extent, using a car has its own benefit. But the challenge a lot of time is that the very moment you drive that car out of the showroom, it has become second-hand, or it has become a used car. The value of that car begins to drop from the very moment you drove the car out of the showroom. So whenever you want to sell that car, you cannot sell that car for the same amount you bought the car. In most cases, you will sell the car for a far less amount. You know why? The reason is because cars depreciate in value. So that is an exact example of a bad debt. There are some people also who take loan, or they use their credit card just to be able to maintain a lifestyle. They buy clothes for themselves, they buy expensive wristwatches, all on credit card. Now, this kind of debt is a bad debt because it does not bring any profit to you. So the question is, what kind of debt have you entered into? I'm taking my time to explain this because if you don't know these things, you keep going into debt and you may never come out of it. You get the point now? So what kind of debt have you found yourself? There are people today who have taken loan, just to do business. That's fine. Although they normally say that no debt is a good debt. Debt is debt. To an extent, that's correct. But to an extent, you see that it has to be categorized. So that's something that I believe you should know about, because these things, they will go a very long way to help you. Now, the next thing that I wanted to address here is the nature of debt. They have the different types of debt, and then they have the nature of debt. Now, what do I mean by this? There is something called intentional debt. There is something called unintentional debt. Intentional debts, these are debts you enter into intentionally. You purposely applied for that credit card. That is intentional. You purposely applied for that car loan. It's intentional. But there is another type that is unintentional, or rather, is another kind of debt that is unintentional. Now, this is the kind where you didn't plan for it. You just found yourself, you just entered into it. Let's take, for example, a debt that, it was owed by your parents, and now that they are not there, you are the one who is having to pay it. That is something also we can call an unintentional debt. So I wanted you to just know this. These are the basic foundation that I felt that you should know, because it will go a very long way to help you when you understand these things. Now, we have different kinds of creditors. This is another area of debt that you should know. There are different kinds of creditors. They have the individual creditor. That is the one where you meet a family member or a friend, and you tell the friend that, oh, look, I really need toss and toss amount of money. Could you please assist me with, that is something that is called individual creditors. And then there is something called institutional creditors. These are the kind of creditors where these are banks, loan houses. There are a lot of loan companies right now that they give out loans. They are not banks, quite all right, but they stand like a bank, okay, to give out loans and all that stuff. Now, you might say, but is this necessary? Yes, it's necessary, because the kind of creditor that you are dealing with determines the kind of conditions that comes with the debt. Okay, let's take for example, if you are dealing with an individual who is close to you, is a friend, may not take interest from you. He will just say, okay, you take this $100, and when you are ready, pay me back my money just exactly the way I gave it to you. But then when it comes to institutions, they will tell you that you're going to pay with toss and toss interest. You're going to pay on a certain day, and you will have a minimum amount that needs to be paid and all that. So I took our time to share these thoughts with you because I believe that if you want to get out of debt, you should know the foundations, you should know the basic things about debt that needs to be understood. Okay, so now we're going to be going into the volume 2 of this particular mini series. So keep watching, and don't forget to drop a comment if you have gotten value from this, because your comment will go a long way to encourage the other people who are watching this particular series. All right, I'll see you in the next volume.